Hey everybody. So, let's talk a little bit about education. Something that I'm really passionate about, right? So I've been a teacher pretty much my whole life. Both my parents are teachers. Vast majority of my family have taught or still teach in some capacity or another. And over the years, I've been a teacher at a bunch of different things, right? So I used to teach music, and I was a fitness instructor, and I was a lecturer at university for finance and professional communication and economics and a bunch of other things. And I used to teach security, and I obviously teach martial arts and self-defense and music. And I've pretty much taught everybody from like a pre-primary level to postgraduate level in a bunch of different areas around the world and a bunch of cool things. Why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, I think education in the context of self-defense and martial arts is super important. And yes, I'm going to bundle those two together for now, self-defense and martial arts, just for the sake of argument, right? For the sake of this discussion. They're not the same, but for now, let's bundle it together. So one of the things that the samurai often highlight in a lot of the writings was that need for the pen and the sword, right? That idea that we need to learn how to fight, right? But we also need to be well educated. And we see that a lot of the samurai were, high-ranking officials or officers. They were actually responsible for things other than just military service. And I think that that's really important. Now, for us in the context of a warrior mindset, right? That idea of Kaizen, of continuous improvement, of bettering oneself all the time, education is a really important part of that. And that doesn't necessarily mean formal education through, training organizations, universities, so on and so forth. It could simply mean doing whatever it is that you need to do to grow as an individual and as a martial artist and as a self-defense practitioner. Let's talk about it in the context of self-defense first, right? If you are looking to learn how to defend yourself, there are a lot of things that you need to learn in order to be able to do that well. The majority of those are not physical skills, right? In other words, if I'm looking at the pre and post of an incident, right? What happens before an incident and what happens after an incident, right? The incident itself is the, puncho kicko, fighting bit. But what happens before that? When we're looking at awareness, we're looking at baselining, we're looking at intuition, we're looking at de-escalation and conflict communication. We're looking at understanding risk management and decision making. All these things are things that, for the most part, you will need to read about or listen to talks on, research, and then start and apply. Right? They're not things that are as easy to practice, like, let's do 1,000 1-2s in order to get good at it. There are obviously things that we can practice in order to get good at those things, but research is really important to getting a deeper understanding of those concepts and how they can be applied and should be applied. The same thing applies for what happens after an incident. When we look at, post-incident trauma, when we're looking at the potential legal ramifications of being in a violent altercation, those are things that you need to read about and enhance your knowledge. So really important that you look at, books and videos by credible sources and enhance your own knowledge. It'll make you a better practitioner, it'll make you safer, and it'll make you a better person overall, right? That's also a lot of the time when you start finding the connections between the principles that you learn in self-defense and martial arts and how you can apply those to things outside the martial arts, whether that's your personal life, whether that's the business. There are so many connections, and it's really important that we understand those and stop binding those bridges, right? If you are a combat sports practitioner, boxer, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, MMA, blah, 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 or you're a martial artist, you can do exactly the same thing. So one of the things that I love doing, right, is I will find, for example, a boxing match by one of my, favorite boxers. Let's say Roy Jones Jr., who's my favorite boxer ever. And I went through a phase where I would literally watch all of his fights, every single one. I would sit there with a notebook and a pen, and I would pause at different points and take notes. What was he doing here? What was he doing there? How did he win this? How did he set that up? If he lost, what were people doing to defeat him? And when you start doing those things, you start going through a critical analysis and critical thinking about what are the elements of the art that you're actually applying and how they are best applied. You would be amazed what a difference that makes to your performance as a practitioner. In fact, one of the things that I found is when I had more serious injuries, I've broken my right hand quite badly going back about 6 or 7 years ago, and I tore my ulnar collateral ligament in my elbow almost clean off in a BJJ competition because I didn't tap in time and I was stupid. But both of those took me out for a good 6 months or 9 months at a time. And what I actually found was during that time, I spent a lot more time doing research because it was the only thing I could do. I couldn't train as much, or I couldn't train as well because I was really limited with my injuries. So I decided to spend that time enhancing my knowledge in other ways. And just because you can't train physically, it doesn't mean that you should stop training. And what I'd actually found, I'd spent so much time looking at those finer points when I was injured and doing all that reading and thinking about things and how things worked mechanically, psychologically, emotionally, tactically, strategically, depending on the context, that I actually found that when I had come back to training following my injuries, I actually still got better. My fitness wasn't where I wanted to be, and there were a couple of things technically that I still needed to polish, but in terms of my understanding of application of things, I actually found that I got better, and it was a really nice surprise to come back to, to sparring or rolling or pressure drilling after having been out for almost 6 months and find out that I still performed really, really well. In fact, in some areas I performed better. So, the point of this really long spiel, right? Make sure that you take the time to research and learn and grow. Do reading, do research, watch videos, analyze incidents, analyze fights, depending on what it is that you're interested in. It will make you a better practitioner. It will make you a better and more well-rounded individual. It will make you more knowledgeable, and it'll help you find those bridges between the stuff that you're doing on the mat and the stuff that you can achieve in real life, again, depending on the context. So, what actually got me thinking about this is Managing Violence podcast with Joe Saunders just put up a wonderful recommended readings list on their website. So go check it out. It is really, really good. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.